Hello, esteemed gentlemen. The quietest minds often carry the loudest storms. There's something disturbingly magnetic about a Sigma male, that silent intensity that makes people lean in, but never too close. He's not smiling to make you comfortable. He's not nodding to make you feel heard. He's just there, watching, reading, dissecting. And in a world where constant emotion equals humanity, that kind of composure feels almost unnatural. Psychologists have long noted that emotional detachment and high analytical awareness can mimic traits found in psychopathy. But here's the twist. Sigma males don't lack empathy. They've simply refined it to a blade. They feel deeply but selectively, a luxury most people can't afford because they spill their emotions like confetti at a circus. It's no wonder society confuses them for psychopaths. When everyone else is panicking, they're sipping coffee. When manipulation begins, they smirk. Not because they're cruel, but because they already saw it coming 3 moves ago. Their calm, their precision, their eerie ability to stay unaffected, it all makes them look like they're running on a different human software. But the truth? Sigma males aren't cold-blooded. They're just cold calculated. And in a world drowning in emotional chaos, that's enough to make anyone look dangerous. Now, let's strip away the myth and dive into why Sigma males seem like psychopaths, and why that misunderstanding might actually be their greatest power. Number 1. They trigger hidden inferiority in others. There's a strange discomfort that fills the room when a Sigma male walks in, not because he's loud or arrogant, but because his presence silently exposes what others spend their lives trying to hide. He doesn't need to prove anything, and that alone makes people uneasy. His stillness acts like a mirror, reflecting everyone's insecurities right back at them. The confident start to question their confidence. The talkative start to wonder why they need so many words, and the powerful start to sense how fragile their control really is. Sigma males don't intentionally intimidate anyone. They simply move through life without performing. That lack of performance strips away the invisible hierarchy people build to feel superior. When someone doesn't need validation, compliments, or approval to exist, it quietly threatens those who survive on it. His calm detachment exposes how addicted most people are to being seen, liked, or obeyed. The Sigma's indifference feels like rejection to the ego-driven, as if he's saying, "You're not as important as you think." This is why people often mislabel him as arrogant or dangerous. It's not what he does, it's what he awakens in others. Insecure minds mistake neutrality for dominance because they can't process self-sufficiency without control. To them, his composure must be a weapon, because it shakes the very illusion of social power they depend on. Even simple things like his silence can create tension. When most people are desperate to fill quiet moments with small talk, a Sigma's comfort in stillness feels unnatural. It forces others to face their own noise, their need to be heard, their fear of not mattering. And that quiet confrontation can feel terrifying. So when people say Sigma males feel off, what they're really sensing is their own imbalance. He's not the storm. He's the mirror showing the storm they've been avoiding. That's the hidden power of the Sigma male. He doesn't expose others with words, but with presence. And to fragile egos, that's far more terrifying than anything a real psychopath could ever do. Number 2. They reframe morality through logic. Sigma males don't see morality as a set of rigid commandments handed down by society. To them, right and wrong depend on context, consequence, and intent, not public opinion. While most people follow moral rules out of habit or fear of judgment, the Sigma questions why those rules exist in the first place. This ability to detach emotion from ethics makes them appear cold or even dangerous to those who live by feelings rather than thought. But what's really happening is that the Sigma is filtering morality through logic instead of conformity. For most people, morality is about fitting in and being accepted. Society rewards those who appear kind, empathetic, and forgiving, even when it's fake. The Sigma doesn't care about that performance. He's not interested in being called a good man by people who bend their morals for convenience. His moral compass is internal, not socially approved. If something doesn't make rational or ethical sense to him, he won't follow it, no matter how many people say he should. That defiance often gets mistaken for lack of conscience. But the Sigma isn't heartless. He's simply uninterested in moral theater. He knows that morality without reason turns into manipulation, a tool used by others to guilt and control. When people try to use emotion or tradition to sway him, he steps back and looks at the logic underneath. Does it serve truth? Does it protect integrity? Or does it just protect someone's ego? This kind of thinking terrifies the average person because it strips morality of its emotional armor and exposes how much of it is built on fear, not virtue. To those watching, his clarity feels cruel, but to him, it's honesty. He believes true morality isn't about appearing kind. It's about doing what's fair, even if it looks ruthless. And that's where people misunderstand him. He's not rewriting morality to serve himself. He's rewriting it to make sense. In a world where most people follow moral rules blindly, that kind of intelligence looks less human and more dangerous. But in truth, it's the purest form of integrity there is. Number 3, they value depth over display. For Sigma males, connection isn't about noise, performance, or grand gestures. It's about truth. They don't care how loudly someone proclaims love or loyalty. They care about how consistently it shows up when nobody's watching. In a world that equates care with constant attention and emotional theatrics, this quiet form of sincerity feels alien. People are used to validation wrapped in performance, the public apology, the dramatic emotion, the exaggerated empathy. The Sigma doesn't play that game. His warmth isn't loud, it's steady. And because it doesn't look like what people expect, they often mistake it for coldness. He values emotional substance, not emotional showmanship. He doesn't need to update the world on his feelings or prove affection through excessive words. To him, love is reliability. Respect is silence when gossip starts. Empathy is action when no one else wants to help. He finds meaning in what's real, not what's loud, and in a society that thrives on attention, that makes him stand out like a ghost in a carnival. The irony is that the Sigma often feels more deeply than most people, but he refuses to broadcast it. He understands that emotions lose their purity when they become performance. That's why he stays quiet when others over-explain, and reserved when others overshare. His restraint is not emotional emptiness, it's emotional control. It's the difference between a flood and a river. One destroys everything, the other shapes landscapes. But to emotionally insecure people, this quiet strength feels offensive. They want visible emotion to validate their worth. And when a Sigma doesn't provide it, they call him distant or unfeeling. What they fail to see is that his calm is the highest form of loyalty. He doesn't exaggerate, manipulate, or dramatize. He simply is. In a performative world where everyone's trying to prove they care, the Sigma's silence becomes suspicious. Yet it's that very silence that hides his depth. He doesn't need to perform humanity, he lives it. And that quiet authenticity, in an age of emotional inflation, is what makes him both misunderstood and unforgettable. Number 4, they don't mirror normal human reactions. Sigma males don't follow the emotional script society expects. When something shocking happens, most people instinctively mirror the emotions around them: sadness, excitement, outrage. Not always because they truly feel it, but because it's socially safe to react that way. The Sigma doesn't play along. He processes everything internally first. Instead of rushing to comfort or cry or panic just to fit in, he pauses to understand. His calm, logical response in moments that demand emotional chaos confuses people. To them, it looks like he doesn't care. To him, it's the only way to see clearly. This emotional independence makes others uncomfortable because they rely on shared reactions to feel connected. When someone refuses to mirror those emotions, it breaks the illusion of unity. The Sigma becomes different, too calm, too detached, too rational. In truth, he's not emotionless. He just refuses to perform empathy for validation. His version of caring isn't loud or dramatic. It's focused, grounded, and often invisible. While others are busy reacting, he's already thinking about what can be done, what it means, and how to solve it. But society often rewards emotional performance over emotional depth. People assume that whoever cries first cares most. So when the Sigma remains still, analyzing rather than dramatizing, they call him cold, robotic, or even heartless. What they fail to see is that his composure isn't a lack of feeling, it's protection. He knows that real empathy isn't about matching someone's emotion. It's about understanding it deeply enough to respond with clarity, not chaos. This is why Sigma males are often misunderstood. Their reactions don't fit the pattern most people are trained to expect. They're not trying to be mysterious. They're trying to stay real in a world addicted to emotional performance. They don't mirror because they don't need to. Their empathy doesn't need witnesses to exist, and that quiet difference is what makes them both fascinating and unsettling to everyone else. Number 5. They understand power at a cellular level. Sigma males have an instinctive understanding of power that runs far deeper than appearances, money, or dominance displays. They don't need to shout, posture, or prove anything. They simply are. Their sense of authority comes from within, not from the need to be seen as powerful. It's an energy that hums quietly under their skin, a grounded confidence that doesn't demand attention but naturally draws it. People feel it before they even understand it. It's not something they do, it's something they emit. Most people confuse power with performance. Louder voices, bigger gestures, constant visibility. Sigmas see through that illusion. They know real power doesn't need to advertise itself. Their composure, calm speech, and controlled movements create an invisible gravity that unsettles weaker egos. The louder personalities feel their own dominance start to shrink in comparison, and they often project that discomfort onto the Sigma, labeling him intimidating or manipulative. But he's not trying to dominate. He's simply unbothered by the need to compete. This quiet dominance comes from deep self-mastery. Sigma males understand their own impulses, weaknesses, and emotions so well that they can't be easily controlled by others. That level of self-awareness makes them unpredictable, not because they're unstable, but because no one can push their buttons. When others lose control, the Sigma stays centered, and that unnerves people who equate emotional display with authenticity. His restraint reads as power because it is power. He moves through life knowing that energy, not ego, is the real battlefield. The Sigma knows when to speak, when to stay silent, when to walk away. And that ability to regulate himself gives him natural command. It's not about superiority, it's about balance. But to those ruled by their own insecurities, that calm feels like manipulation. What they don't realize is that the Sigma isn't controlling anyone. He's mastered himself. And in a world where most can't even master their reactions, that kind of quiet strength feels almost supernatural. Number 6. They feel but rarely display. Guilt Sigma. Males operate from an internal compass that's not easily swayed by social judgment or emotional manipulation. They don't measure their actions by whether people will approve. They measure them by whether those actions align with their personal truth. When they make a decision, they've already analyzed the consequences and accepted them. That's why they rarely show guilt the way others expect. It's not that they don't feel it, it's that they don't perform it. They believe in accountability, not in public displays of remorse to appear good. In a world that thrives on emotional theater, their quiet acceptance of responsibility can look cold. Most people are conditioned to associate guilt with performance. The apologies, the sad tone, the exaggerated regret. Sigma males don't see the point. To them, guilt is an internal lesson, not a social currency. They'd rather change their behavior than put on a show of sorrow for validation. This confuses people who rely on guilt as proof of humanity. When the Sigma stays calm after a mistake, others assume he feels nothing. In truth, he's just processing it differently, privately, logically, and without the need for approval. This independence makes him look ruthless in the eyes of moral conformists. When everyone else is bending rules to fit emotions, the Sigma sticks to truth, even when it's uncomfortable. He won't apologize just to make others feel better if he believes he acted from integrity. And that refusal to fake remorse offends people who perform morality for appearances. They label him soulless because his emotions aren't up for public consumption. But underneath that calm exterior lies a deep, often unspoken sense of ethics. The Sigma's guilt isn't loud because it's real. He doesn't externalize it. He transforms it into discipline, boundaries, and sharper awareness. He doesn't need forgiveness from others to forgive himself. And that quiet moral autonomy, in a world addicted to performative guilt, makes him look less human, when in reality, he's just more honest. Number 7. They're unpredictably logical. Sigma males don't argue to win. They argue to understand. That single difference changes everything. Most people step into conflict armed with emotion, ego, and the desperate need to be right. The Sigma doesn't care about being right. He cares about being accurate. His logic cuts straight through emotional fog, and that's what makes him unpredictable. You can't guilt-trip him, you can't provoke him, and you can't manipulate him into reacting the way you want. He doesn't bite the bait because his mind isn't powered by ego. It's powered by clarity. In an argument, his calm dismantles chaos. While others shout or plead, he stays grounded, pulling emotion out of the equation like a surgeon removing a tumor. That composure is unsettling because most people rely on emotion to control the tone of a discussion. When someone doesn't respond to anger with anger or guilt with apology, it disarms them. They start to feel exposed, even foolish, because their usual tactics don't work. This is why people often say the Sigma is scary in conversation, not because he's cruel, but because his mind doesn't flinch. What makes him truly dangerous is that he doesn't argue from a place of insecurity. He doesn't need to defend his ego, so he's free to think clearly. When others are emotional, they become predictable. Their words reveal their fears. Their reactions reveal their weaknesses. The Sigma listens, not to fight back, but to map the truth. His logic follows no pattern others can manipulate, and that unpredictability frustrates people who thrive on emotional chaos. The truth is, his logic isn't heartless, it's protective. It shields him from emotional traps and groupthink. While others are busy performing morality or outrage, he's quietly analyzing cause and effect. That's why he always seems 2 steps ahead. To the emotional mind, that looks robotic or intimidating. But to the Sigma, it's simply survival. Thinking clearly in a world where most people confuse feelings with facts. Number 8. They study people without participating. Sigma males have a way of watching the world that feels unsettling to most people. They don't jump into conversations to be heard, and they don't force themselves to be part of every social rhythm. Instead, they step back, observe, and let others reveal themselves. While everyone else is trying to impress, perform, or dominate attention, the Sigma is quietly collecting data, patterns of speech, tone changes, micro-expressions, inconsistencies between words and energy. He doesn't just hear what people say, he sees what they mean underneath it. And that kind of observation makes people feel seen in a way they didn't consent to. What makes it even more unnerving is that he doesn't react much while watching. His expression stays neutral, unreadable. In a world where people rely on mirrored emotions to feel safe, his calm scrutiny feels invasive. It's like he's decoding your inner world while giving nothing of his own away. Most people can't handle that level of silence. It makes them feel exposed. So they misread it as manipulation or judgment, when in reality the Sigma is simply curious. He wants to understand why people do what they do, not control them for advantage. Unlike the manipulative observer who studies others to exploit weaknesses, the Sigma studies to grasp truth. He's fascinated by human contradiction, how people preach honesty but hide behind politeness, how they seek connection yet fear vulnerability. His detachment protects him from getting lost in that chaos. But to others, it feels cold, even dangerous, because he doesn't engage in the usual social rituals that make people comfortable. He can sit through an entire conversation saying almost nothing, and still walk away, knowing everyone's role in the social hierarchy, who's faking confidence, who's insecure, and who's trying to manipulate the group. That quiet precision makes him look like he's always one step ahead. People sense it, but can't explain it. They just feel observed. And in a society where attention equals validation, being truly seen without being entertained or flattered feels like exposure. That's why the Sigma's gaze carries power, not because he's judging, but because he's awake while everyone else is performing. Number 9. Their emotional calm feels unnatural to the overstimulated. In a world where people equate loud emotions with authenticity, the Sigma male's calm feels almost alien. Most people wear their feelings like flashing lights, quick to react, eager to show that they care, angry at the smallest provocation, and constantly expressing something just to feel alive. Emotional display has become a form of identity, a way to prove humanity. But Sigma males are wired differently. They don't waste emotional energy on performance or validation. Their emotions run deep but quietly, like a still ocean. And that stillness unsettles those who are addicted to noise. When chaos erupts, the Sigma doesn't flinch. He doesn't need to yell, cry, or explode to process what's happening. His strength lies in restraint. He understands that losing control doesn't make emotions more real, it only makes them messy. This is why he often appears robotic or distant when others are spiraling. He's not detached, he's disciplined. He knows that clarity can only exist in calm, and calm is impossible when emotions run wild. But to emotionally impulsive people, his composure feels unnatural, even inhuman. They mistake his stability for emotional absence because they can't imagine feeling deeply without broadcasting it. This misunderstanding often turns into resentment. People project their chaos onto him, labeling him cold or unfeeling, simply because he doesn't match their intensity. Yet the Sigma's calm isn't indifference. It's control born from experience. He's felt the sting of emotion before and learned that reacting rarely solves anything. Instead of burning energy on drama, he saves it for action and resolution. His emotional economy makes him powerful in moments that break others. When everyone else loses direction, he remains grounded, thinking clearly, moving deliberately. That poise creates an aura of mystery that others both admire and fear. The truth is, the Sigma's calm isn't a lack of feeling. It's proof that he's mastered what most people are still slaves to. In a world addicted to emotional chaos, serenity looks suspicious. But to the Sigma, peace isn't a pose, it's power. Number 10. They're intimidatingly self-aware. Self-awareness is rare because it's uncomfortable. Most people spend their lives avoiding their flaws, denying their contradictions, and hiding behind moral or emotional excuses. Sigma males do the opposite. They face their inner chaos head-on. They study their impulses, fears, and darker thoughts not to suppress them, but to understand and control them. That kind of raw honesty with oneself is unsettling to others, because it's the kind of reflection most people run from. To the Sigma, knowing his darkness isn't weakness, it's insurance. When you understand your own shadow, it can't be used against you. This deep self-awareness gives the Sigma an unshakable composure that others can't quite interpret. While people around him constantly seek reassurance, validation, or someone to blame, he looks inward. He doesn't need external approval to define who he is, and that independence reads as arrogance to those still at war with themselves. His calm isn't because he lacks emotion, it's because he's already wrestled with the parts of himself that most people keep buried. There's nothing left in him that needs to pretend. That level of self-mastery can be intimidating because it strips away the normal social illusions. When you talk to a Sigma, you're dealing with someone who sees not just others, but himself with brutal honesty. There's no fake humility, no emotional smokescreen. He's aware of his flaws and power in equal measure, and he doesn't perform guilt or insecurity to seem relatable. People mistake that quiet confidence for emotional detachment, but it's actually maturity. He's already done the emotional work that others still avoid. Psychopaths pretend to be self-aware so they can manipulate others. Sigma males are self-aware so they can master themselves. That's the key difference. Their understanding of who they are, both the light and the dark, gives them balance. But to the unexamined mind, that balance feels eerie. People aren't used to someone who isn't pretending. And in a world built on emotional masks, true self-awareness doesn't just stand out, it scares people. Number 11. They don't chase belonging. Most people are wired to seek belonging. They'll adjust their behavior, opinions, and even their values just to fit into a group, because acceptance feels safe. But Sigma males reject that instinctive need. They don't crave inclusion. They crave alignment. If a group doesn't match their principles or purpose, they have no problem walking away, even if it means being completely alone. That refusal to conform, even slightly, unsettles people. To a world that equates togetherness with goodness, someone who thrives outside the tribe must look arrogant or even broken. The Sigma's independence isn't about rejecting humanity, it's about preserving clarity. He understands that every group, no matter how noble it starts, eventually builds rules that limit individual thought. He's seen how social circles pressure people to act agreeable, how workplaces reward conformity, and how even families guilt-trip individuality into silence. To him, that's not connection, that's mental contamination. He won't trade authenticity for acceptance, even if it means being misunderstood. Because of this, people often misread his isolation as superiority. They assume he thinks he's too good for others, but in truth, he just values peace more than pretense. He knows the price of belonging is often the death of self-respect. While others cling to false unity, the Sigma is comfortable standing alone with his thoughts. He finds strength in solitude because it's the only place where his mind stays untouched. This kind of independence is unsettling to the collective-minded. People who rely on validation can't grasp how someone can exist without it. To them, detachment looks soulless, but to the Sigma, it's freedom. He's not avoiding people. he's avoiding the noise that clouds self-awareness. The irony is that his solitude, which others see as emptiness, is actually fullness, a space filled with self-knowledge, direction, and calm. And that quiet self-containment, in a world desperate for belonging, feels almost supernatural. Number 12. They can read energy, not words. Sigma males don't listen the way most people do. They're not easily fooled by charming words or well-rehearsed emotions. They tune into something deeper: tone shifts, subtle hesitation, energy changes, micro-expressions that flash across a face for half a second. While others get lost in the surface of what's said, the Sigma catches what's being suppressed. He reads the room like a frequency, picking up signals that most people aren't even aware they're sending. And that level of perceptiveness can make people feel uncomfortably seen. When someone says, "I'm fine," the Sigma doesn't just hear the words. He senses the heaviness behind them, the forced tone, the mismatched energy. He's not consciously trying to invade anyone's privacy. It's just how his mind works. He's tuned to authenticity and easily detects when something doesn't match. This creates tension because people are used to being believed when they lie politely. They don't expect someone to sense the truth they're trying to hide, especially someone who doesn't react the way they want. That's why people often feel exposed around him. His calm attention feels almost telepathic. He doesn't need to interrogate or accuse. He simply knows. When people realize they can't manipulate his perception with charm or emotional acting, they get defensive. It feels like he's seeing into their private world. But in reality, he's just reading the energy they broadcast without realizing it. This intuitive awareness gives the Sigma an almost eerie edge in social settings. He knows who's pretending, who's genuine, who's insecure, and who's quietly competing. He reads the emotional current of a room faster than most people process a sentence. That ability makes him trustworthy to the honest and dangerous to the fake. The irony is that the Sigma rarely uses this gift to gain advantage. He uses it to protect his peace. He listens to what's real, not what's rehearsed. And in a world built on polite lies and emotional performance, that kind of perception feels less like empathy and more like X-ray vision. In a world obsessed with appearances, Sigma males remain the unsettling mirror no one wants to face. They expose the hollowness of emotional theatrics, the hypocrisy of moral performances, and the quiet fear society has of true self-awareness. Their silence is not emptiness, it's depth. Their calm is not detachment, it's control. And their logic isn't cold, it's purified of the noise that blinds most people from truth. People mistake them for psychopaths because they can't comprehend peace without performance, confidence without validation, or empathy without exhibition. The Sigma male operates beyond emotional chaos, observing the world with surgical clarity, not to dominate it, but to understand it. He's the rare man who can embrace both light and darkness without losing balance. That kind of integration looks dangerous to those still pretending to be good. But the truth is, it's not danger they're seeing, it's freedom. The Sigma's quiet power unsettles because it's rooted in something society fears most: authenticity. No masks, no performance, no desperate chase for belonging. Just raw awareness. That's what gives him his aura of mystery and strength. He doesn't try to be intimidating. He just is. Because nothing is more intimidating than a man who cannot be manipulated by fear, guilt, or the need to be understood. So if you've ever been called cold, detached, or too calm, maybe you're not broken, maybe you're just awake. The world will always fear those who see through it. And that's exactly why Sigma males walk alone, not because they can't connect, but because they refuse to disconnect from their truth. If you found value in this exploration of the Sigma mind, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear your perspective. Every engagement helps this community grow stronger, more aware, and more fearless. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who see through the illusion.